what are the most common triggers of migraines? I mean, as we're talking, I'm thinking my sister gets these during menstruation, and she's had
Mhm.
endometriosis as well. So obviously, there's hormonal imbalances. And speaking of that, more women than ever before are suffering from PCOS, endometriosis, horrific PMS pains. My daughter is one of them. Thank goodness she doesn't have migraines that go with it, but she has
Mhm.
anxiety and severe
Mhm.
pain that goes along with it. But my sister, she gets very blurred vision. She will have to be down and out. Now she's a mom of three. And when you're a mom, life keeps going. Doesn't matter how you feel, right? So, what are the most common triggers of migraines?
The most common triggers are some of the ones that you cited. You talked about stress. Stress is a very big one. It can be that some people express migraine during the stress phase. Some people express it after. So they say as soon as the stress phase is out, for example, every Friday, every Saturday, every holiday, I have migraine. So it's a different imbalance, but it's both triggered by stress in very different style. A second trigger is all of the family of toxins. So the wine, cheese, chocolate are triggers that women will identify very fast. But we're going to talk about a nuance here. Not always. I'm going to come back to that notion because it's an important one. And any toxins, heavy metals, and things that can be in the soil or that people are exposed to. Therefore, medications. So there is proven scientifically that a lot of medications will give rebound migraines or what is called medication overuse headaches. So the more you medicate, the more it's gonna give them. So think of the whole family of toxins. Um, Other triggers can be dehydration, also, although it can be more sophisticated than that. So, at the simplest level, from a Western mind, you talk about dehydration. From an Eastern mind, you talk about a yin deficiency. So, a deficiency of sort of deep hydration at a brain level. And so the brain's just complaining about that. So, think of perimenopause and constipation, this kind. Yeah, so these are some of the major ones, but also weather. Weather is a huge one for some people. A change in barometric pressure is going to be a big trigger for migraines, so people can almost predict the weather with their migraines. And yeah.
Well, you have to think inflammation in the brain is only going to make things worse, and it's the same triggers that cause inflammation in the body. The wrong foods, like you're talking about, and that's where I am very specific with certain foods, and even the healthy foods that you think are healthy for you could be triggers. But the weather can cause you to get bloated, to make your joints hurt more. So it seems to be common that it thought that it would affect your brain in the same way. That these inflammatory triggers would cause inflammation in the brain, worsening these migraines and much more than just a headache. But I can tell you, like we've talked about before, just stress will give me blurred vision. It will give me a dull headache, and I'm not one
Yeah.
that is affected by migraines per se.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the challenge is that when you start to have these symptoms, you go to the doctor as you should, right? And you should always exclude things. You should do your MI, do your CT scan, do your blood tests. Yeah. But the challenge is that the answer is medicate. And when you do that, you start to make the situation worse. And so this is where it starts to be very complicated. In addition to that, what is really complicated is that because it's genetic, it's 5% of boys and girls. But weirdly enough, at puberty, the incidence is going to triple to quadruple just for women, leaving 18 to now we talk about 22% for the US of
Wow.
women with migraines. So it's 1 in 5 women, 1 in 20 men. So it's something that hasn't been really, really analyzed by Western science as much. So now, as your brain's going to directly go to, of course, hormones will play a role, and in particular, cycles.
Yeah.
And so for sometimes some women will have they're going to have a lot of migraines before their menstruation. Some of them are going to have them during their menstruation, some of them after the menstruation, some of them at ovulation, and all of these will vary, which means, back to your earlier question, that the triggers within a month will vary as well. Sometimes that little glass of wine is going to go just fine, and sometimes it's going to hit you really, really hard. And this is where women, even though they're going to track their data, they're not going to understand the patterns. And we're going to go to the doctor. They're going to their speech is not going to make a lot of sense. They will start to have self-doubt, and the doctor might say, I can see you're a bit depressed, or you're a bit convoluted in your thoughts. Maybe you need a bit of an antidepressant. I'm not depressed. I have a really good personality. But have you seen my life? Like, I'm indoors every single day. I'm cutting out all of the pleasure in my life, and I'm still in pain. Well, so you are depressed. No, I'm not, but you are depressed. Am I? And then women start to have a lot of self-doubt, and
Yeah.
meditate beyond beyond what they would have liked.
Well, and men don't go to the doctors as much as women do. But what's so interesting is that you said 1 in 5 women. That is the statistic that I'm talking about with women suffering from fibroids and endometriosis and PCOS and these hormonal disruptions. It's the same percentage. So it has to be correlated, if not directly caused by these hormonal fluctuations. And estrogen dominance is so prevalent, not just in women, you guys too are getting it. That's where the lack of testosterone is. And that's why you have man boobs and you can't build the muscle like you used to. And we're having erectile dysfunction in your 20s. So these hormonal issues that we are discussing, that you think we're just affecting women, it's affecting you men in other ways as well. But the headaches and the migraine part is affecting the women more. This is really interesting, and it's only getting worse because the toxins that you're talking about have only gotten worse. And that's something I talk about a lot: the microplastics, the radiation, the heavy metals. My labs were my levels of lead, mercury, and aluminum were through the roof, off the charts, literally off the chart, when I first went and had them done. And that was back 15, 20 years ago. Things have only gotten worse. And our livers, as you and I have talked about before, are having to deal with all of these toxins. And then the food, if we're eating the wrong healthy food, that's making things worse. And that's going to cause liver upset, anger, heat in Chinese medicine. And
Hmm.
I'm assuming that's going to translate into a heat or a heat headache, migraine, and be a trigger for migraines as well. Would that be correct?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And this is where we get it as a society really, really upside down. And it's devastating because the consequences on people and their families, I cannot insist enough, are absolutely horrific. You mentioned earlier how sometimes you have a leg that is broken but the second one works, etc. This also visible. What is really hard with migraine disease is it's invisible.
Mhm.
So you are disabled. However, you look really healthy.